In a previous video, we focused on the age-old question, is my house protected? In today's video, we're going to build on that topic, and instead we're going to focus on, can I remove my house? So it's sort of that next step in the question process. More specifically, we're going to focus on the history of how council's position on this topic has evolved over time. Then we're going to focus on the 3 different things that council actually looks at, and then we're going to finish off by looking, most importantly, at the costs, timeframes and risks of going down this path. If that sounds like it's something that interests you, then stick around. Brisbane City Council has been under a lot of pressure in recent years to really crack down on this issue. I remember when I first moved from working in council to the private industry just over 10 years ago, I used to love lodging demolition applications because they were the easiest things on earth. I literally had 2 arguments. The first argument was that the house does not form part of a cluster of 3 or more dwellings. Therefore, it is not a true demolition control precinct, what we refer to as traditional building character overlay nowadays. That was literally all I said. The second argument was the house has been butchered and no longer has any obvious character. Boom, drop the mic, my work here is done. It was literally that easy. So instead of doing reams and reams of justification, it was literally those 2 simple arguments I had to choose from. It was, like I said, really easy to get demolition approval. As I said though, council has been under pressure from the community in recent years, probably the last 5 or so years, to crack down on this issue. They're now pushing to preserve individual houses and houses that aren't the stereotypical tin and timber house. So more of your Spanish mission or your more ugly, or I shouldn't say ugly, no house is ugly, but less stereotypical cutesy sort of Queenslanders. So that's sort of the shift we've seen. Like I said, we started out super loose and super free in terms of the interpretation, the enforcement, what council actually wanted to see. As a result of public backlash, they've really cracked down on this issue and started preserving those individual, more unique houses, ones that people don't typically associate with traditional building character. So that's the history, how we sort of get to this point. Now we're going to focus on what council actually looks at these days when they actually see these applications. So number 1, the first criteria that we can look at is the house structurally unsound? I'm going to short that and go structurally unsound and beyond reasonable repair. Now, I have people all the time, they come to me and they go, oh, there's a little bit of termite damage, or there's a little bit of rot. Yeah, that's not structurally unsound and beyond repair. I hate to break it to you guys. So there was probably about 5 or so years ago, the courts did have a definite figure of what they believed was structurally unsound and beyond reasonable repair in terms of a cost factor. That figure, they'd ruled, off the top of my head, I think it was $350 per square metre was deemed to be reasonable. $650 a square metre was deemed to be unreasonable. The void or the space between those 2 figures was yet untested. So we would always say to people, hey, if you're around the 350 mark, no, the court system is going to deem that as being appropriate. However, if you're up over the 650 mark, yeah, maybe you've got a chance. One thing to keep in mind, because everyone initially hears 650 and they go, yeah, that's easy, I can do that. Yeah, no, structural. We're focusing on structural stuff here, guys. So that's not that's not painting the walls, that's not fixtures and fittings, that's not blinds, that's not all that sort of stuff. It's to get it to a point where it is structurally sound. Every single case I've seen in recent years, people have gone from, yeah, that's easy, I can do it. And I've gone, well, go away, have a chat to your estimator, your builder, come back to me once you've got some proper figures. Yeah, no surprises, they all come back and go, yeah, okay. When we actually look at just the structural aspects, yeah, it doesn't stack up. Now, the other thing I should point out here is that 650 figure, like I said, maybe 5 years ago that was in play. Since then, we've raised it in line with CPI. Also, as far as I'm aware, the courts have now started indexing it based on suburbs. So suburbs where you're going to get a higher resale price, that figure goes up. Suburbs where you're potentially going to get a lower resale price, yeah, it may stay down here. So if you're looking to demolish a house in Paddington, as opposed to, let's say, Nogra or one of those more outlying areas, you're going to be looking at 2 different figures. So don't get excited by that. Just a little bit of termite damage, like I said, or a little bit of structural stuff's not going to cut it. It needs to be really bad. Actually, I'll probably give you a couple of examples here. The 2 jobs that I've done in recent times were both fire damaged. One was done by lightning and one was done by arson, rumoured, not the owner, let me put that out there. So both of these dwellings were literally burnt to a crisp. There was barely anything left. It was at the point where I was actually scared to walk on site because I thought this thing, well, both instances, the house was just going to crumble around me. Those were jobs that we managed to push through on that aspect there. So I keep emphasising this point. It needs to be to the point where it's just beyond repair. It has no life left. It's extreme. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, let me just shorten this and go butchered. Butched. Let's just shorten it. Feeling a little lazy today. Okay, so you basically need to say it's butchered to the point where it's beyond repair. Now again, everyone comes to me and they go, oh look, the sunroom's been enclosed. They've swapped a couple of windows. It's butchered. You know, that ain't butchered, guys. The only job that I've been able to get through in recent times under this clause, it literally, the entire outside of the house, the cladding had been removed, timber cladding, it had been filled in with bricks, all the window locations had been moved in the process, and the roof structure had actually been changed. So instead of going from a typical sort of pyramid, it had gone to a hip, I think it was. So it was a totally different shape. It was at the point where when we looked at the aerial photo, it didn't look like the exact same house. It looked like a totally different house. The only reason we knew it was original was searching through the building records. So it can't just be little cosmetic changes. It needs to be massive changes to the point where you can't reasonably reverse that work. So again, I'm trying to emphasize here, you shouldn't get excited when you see these things because council's looking at them from an extreme perspective. Now, the final one, let's go Streetscape. If you can demonstrate that there is absolutely no character left in the street, then you may have an opportunity to push through this one. I personally can't think of a situation where we've been able to successfully argue that in recent times, because you need to look at, basically, let's simplify it. Let me say if you have at least one or two houses in the street that are original, and if they have any aspect of character left, so they got a pitched roof or they got an enclosed veranda, like a sunroom that can be reinstated, I think council's going to hold strong on that one. So don't get excited if you look up and down, you see a couple of modern houses or a couple of butchered houses. The entire street needs to be gone for council to consider this one. Okay, so now we've looked, like I said, the history, what council looks at. Let's look at the process. I'm going to tell you now, based on my experience, 99% of the inquiries that we see or the jobs that we see will be refused by council. They will not support the proposal under any of these grounds. Comes back to this. They're under increasing pressure from the community to really crack down on this issue. So as a result, the question is not will council support it? The question is will the court support it? So when you get that refusal, you appeal council's decision, if I get my words out, decision, and you go to court. Will the court actually support it? I'd probably suggest 80–90% of the inquiries that come across my desk, the answer is no. You can spend over $15,000 and over 18 months trying to fight this issue in council, and you can still end up with a no. That is the reality. So unfortunately, like I said, you can get the no from council, but the reality is you're probably going to get a no from the court system as well. That's the reason why I do not recommend that people go down this path. Yes, Blind Freddy knows it's cheaper to bulldoze a house and start anew. But when you look at those massive costs, the holding costs over 18 months, the stress on you, all of that sort of stuff, that little glimmer of hope, most of the time it's not worth it. So I think that covers off everything I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, well, hopefully it is. If you decide that your property actually has a chance under these requirements and you want a second opinion, you want to see if there is any chance, whether your property could be that one exception to the rule, then feel free to send it through. We don't charge for initial advice or investigations. If I think it has any glimmer of hope, then I'll do one of two things. I'll either connect you with a heritage expert, so one of those guys that provides the expert witness material, opinion, perspective, whatever you want to call it, in the court process, or a planning lawyer who specialises in these sort of applications. They can then give you their feedback or their position based on recent court cases. Hopefully this video has helped. If you have any questions, I'd encourage you to keep the conversation going down below. Until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, The advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.